Before we begin, please leave a comment, share your thoughts and let us know your lessons learned in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. In the village of Arden, nestled between rolling hills and misty forests, lived a girl whose beauty seemed to come from another world. Her name was Lyra, and she was unlike any other soul in the village. Her beauty was not of the kind that came from extravagant gowns or precious jewels. It was a beauty that radiated from within, pure, untainted, and captivating. With every step she took, the world around her seemed to shine a little brighter, and those who crossed her path couldn't help but smile, drawn to her warmth. Yet, beneath that luminous exterior, there was a story far darker than anyone could imagine. Lyra had lost her mother when she was but a child, a loss so deep it still haunted the edges of her heart. Her father, a man of quiet strength and tenderness, did his best to raise her on his own. He loved her with a devotion that was beyond words. But even the most devoted parent cannot shield their child from the cruel twists of fate. One day, her father remarried, a decision that, though meant to bring stability, shattered the delicate peace they had once known. His new wife, Alara, was a woman of remarkable beauty. Yet there was something in her eyes, something cold, something calculating, that made Lyra uneasy from the start. Alara's daughter, Isolda, was equally beautiful, though her beauty had an edge to it, a sharpness that felt both superior and dangerous. While Lyra longed for the connection of a mother, she found nothing but disdain in Alara's gaze. From the moment they moved into the household, Alara made it clear that she saw Lyra not as a daughter but as a rival. Every compliment that Lyra received, every admiring glance from the villagers, every whisper of praise, Alara could not bear it. Lyra's natural charm, her graceful movements, the way people were drawn to her, all only deepened Alara's bitterness. And there was one thing Alara could not stand more than anything: Lyra's humility. Lyra never flaunted her beauty, she was kind and unassuming, always putting others before herself. It drove Alara mad. And then, there was the moment that would change everything. The kingdom had long been abuzz with excitement about the royal ball. It was an event like no other, held once every year in the heart of the grand palace. The prince, a mysterious figure with piercing eyes and a reputation for wisdom, would be there, searching for a wife. Every young woman in the kingdom dreamed of being chosen, of dancing under the glistening chandeliers and being swept off their feet by the prince himself. Lyra had heard the stories, of course, stories of women in glittering gowns, the scent of roses in the air, and the music that echoed like a dream. She had never dared to imagine herself at such a ball. But this year, something was different. A fire had ignited in her heart, one she couldn't ignore. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to dream. She pictured herself standing at the grand gates of the palace, the towering structure bathed in golden light. The sound of music, soft and enchanting, swirled in her mind as she imagined the beautiful gowns, the laughter of the court, the glittering lights illuminating the night. She saw herself spinning across the ballroom floor, her heart free from the weight of grief and cruel words. It was a fantasy, yes, but for a moment, it felt real. Lyra dared to imagine the impossible. But in the dark corners of the house, where the shadows grew long and secrets festered, Alara had noticed the change in Lyra, the excitement in her step, the gleam in her eyes, the way her heart seemed to soar at the mere thought of the ball. It was more than Alara could tolerate. She couldn't stand the idea of Lyra, this humble, simple girl, daring to dream of a life beyond the confines of their home. And so, she decided, Lyra would not go to that ball. Not if she had anything to say about it. It was the moment Lyra mentioned the royal event that Alara's plan began to take shape. You, at the ball? Alara's voice was dripping with disdain as she turned toward Lyra, her eyes sharp and cold. Do you really believe someone like you belongs there? Lyra's heart fluttered painfully at the harshness of the words. She had known, of course, that Alara disapproved of her. But this felt different. Alara's gaze was full of venom, and Lyra couldn't understand why her stepmother would go to such lengths to crush her spirit. I just want to see the palace, Lyra murmured, trying to keep her voice steady. I want to experience it. Just once. I don't expect anything more. Alara's laughter was bitter, almost mocking. Dance with nobles? Do you honestly think a prince would ever notice you? You're nothing but a simple country girl. Stay in your place. Those words, sharp and cruel, cut through Lyra's chest. They echoed in her mind, again and again, but she refused to let them define her. She would not let Alara win. Why not? Lyra whispered, her voice trembling with determination. I'll find a way to go. You can't stop me. Alara's eyes flashed with fury. And for a moment, the air between them felt thick with tension. A cruel smile spread across Alara's lips. Oh, I will find a way to stop you. Just wait and see. The next day, Lyra was flooded with tasks, an endless list of chores that seemed designed to wear her down. To break her resolve, clean this, wash that, prepare the dinner before the sun sets. The list went on, an impossible mountain of work for one person. And yet, she refused to give up. She worked through the day, her hands aching, her back sore, but her spirit remained unbroken. She would not let Alara's cruelty win. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, she finished the last of her chores, sweat dripping down her brow. But a spark of hope still flickered in her heart. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could still make it to the ball. But Alara was watching, and her plan had only just begun. As the days passed in the village of Arden, a sense of foreboding hung in the air. Lyra worked harder than ever, determined to keep her dream alive despite the obstacles that Alara had placed in her path. Each day was a battle, every task more difficult than the last. But she kept pushing forward. She cleaned, she cooked, she scrubbed floors until they shone. Her hands were raw, her body aching, but she never complained. She could feel the weight of her stepmother's eyes on her, watching her every move, waiting for her to break. But something inside Lyra refused to yield. No matter how hard Alara tried to crush her spirit, Lyra held on to the one thing that kept her going, her dream of the royal ball. The night of the ball loomed closer, a shimmering promise on the horizon, and the excitement in Lyra's heart grew with each passing day. She imagined the glittering palace, the elegant gowns, the music that would fill the air, and above all, the freedom to escape from the cruelty of her stepmother's household. Even if it was only for a single night, it was a chance to live, to breathe, to be seen, not as the humble girl from the village, but as a woman worthy of admiration and respect. But as the night drew nearer, Alara's jealousy grew more intense. She could see in Lyra's eyes the spark of hope that refused to be extinguished. And it only made her hate the girl more. Alara could not, would not, allow Lyra to go to the ball, to shine in a way that Alara could never hope to. She had tried humiliation, cruelty, and manipulation, but Lyra remained unbroken. It was time for Alara to take matters into her own hands. One evening, as Lyra was finishing her chores, Alara called her into the living room, a wicked glint in her eyes. "You're still set on going to that ball, aren't you?" she sneered. "You think you can just waltz into the palace like you belong there? Well, I have a little surprise for you." Lyra's heart skipped a beat, but she forced herself to keep calm. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady despite the growing fear in her chest. Alara smiled, a cold, cruel smile. "Oh, you'll see. I think it's time you learned that dreams don't come true for people like you." With that, she handed Lyra a small, crumpled piece of paper. "I prepared something special for you. My dear, you'll be too busy to even think about that ridiculous ball now." Lyra unfolded the paper, her eyes scanning the harsh words written there. It was a list, an impossible list, of tasks that she had to complete before sunset. Each more grueling than the last. The list was long, but it wasn't the length that made her heart sink, it was the cruelty of it. Clean the stables, polish all the furniture, wash every single window, and, of course, prepare dinner for the whole house. Lyra's fingers trembled as she read the list. But she knew she couldn't let Alara see her weakness. She would do it. She would do it all. No matter how difficult, she would not let her stepmother break her. That evening, as the sun began to set, Lyra started her work. She entered the stables, her body sore from the endless chores she had already completed that day. The air was thick with the smell of hay and dust, and the animals in their stalls seemed to watch her with knowing eyes. But it didn't matter. She didn't care. She would finish this list, no matter the cost. Hours passed, the sky darkening as she worked under the dim light of a lantern. The stables were cleaned, the furniture polished, and the windows washed, but with each task, her exhaustion grew. She could feel her muscles protesting, her mind growing foggy from the weight of it all. But she didn't stop. There was no stopping now. Alara watched from the doorway. a sly grin on her lips as she saw Lyra's determination. The girl was too naive, too hopeful. She had no idea just how far Alara was willing to go to make sure she didn't make it to that ball. As Lyra finally finished the last task on the list, her body trembling with fatigue, she heard a soft creak behind her. She turned to find Alara standing in the doorway, her face twisted with smug satisfaction. "Well, my dear," Alara said, her voice dripping with venom, "you're not going to that ball. Not with that list, not with those filthy clothes, and certainly not with the mess you've made of yourself." She crossed her arms, watching Lyra with cold amusement. "You might as well give up now." Lyra felt a rush of anger, but she refused to let Alara see it. Instead, she swallowed her frustration and said softly, "I will go to the ball. You can't stop me." Alara's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a sneer. "You think you can still go? After all this? You really think anyone will look at you? You're nothing but a servant. No prince will ever choose you." Lyra's heart thudded in her chest, but she knew there was truth in Alara's words. Her clothes were filthy, her hair a tangled mess, and her face was streaked with dirt and sweat. But there was one thing Alara couldn't take from her. There was one thing she still had, her spirit. Lyra could still dream, she could still fight, and no matter what Alara said, she refused to let her stepmother win. "Let me go," Lyra said, her voice trembling but firm. "I don't care what you think. I'll find a way." Alara's face darkened, but she didn't speak another word. She turned and walked away, leaving Lyra standing alone in the dim light, her heart racing. As Lyra looked around the empty room, her eyes fell upon a worn-out scarf that her mother had once owned. She had kept it all these years as a reminder of her mother's love. It was simple, made of soft fabric, but it held memories that nothing could replace. With trembling hands, Lyra picked it up and tied it around her head, covering the mess of her hair. "I will go," she whispered to herself, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "No matter what it takes." And so, despite everything, despite Alara's cruelty, despite the long hours of work, despite the humiliation and the obstacles, Lyra refused to give up. She had a dream, and she would not let anyone take it from her. The night of the royal ball was finally upon her, and Lyra stood at the edge of her stepmother's home, her heart pounding in her chest. The sky was dark, dotted with stars, but Lyra didn't see the twinkling lights above her. All she could see was the looming palace in the distance, its grand silhouette illuminated by the shimmering glow of lanterns. The music from the ball drifted through the night air, soft and enticing, like the sweet call of a dream she thought was beyond her reach. Her hands shook as she touched the scarf around her head, the simple fabric that had become her symbol of defiance. It wasn't the gown she had imagined, the sparkling jewels she had once dreamt of wearing, or the perfect hair that so many girls at the ball would undoubtedly have. But it didn't matter. Tonight, she was going to be herself, raw, real, and unbreakable. Behind her, the house was quiet. Alara's laughter, the cruel taunts, the harsh words, none of them could touch her anymore. In the stillness of the night, Lyra found the strength to take the first step away from everything that had tried to bind her. Away from the oppressive darkness of her stepmother's cruelty. With each step, the distance between her and the house grew, but so did her hope. Lyra moved swiftly, her feet carrying her toward the glowing palace, her heart beating faster with every stride. She passed through the winding paths, through the dense woods that led to the palace gates, each breath filling her with a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Could she really do this? Could she step into that world, into a place so foreign to her, and be seen as more than just the humble village girl? But when she reached the palace gates, Lyra paused. She had arrived. The sight before her was like something out of a fairy tale. The grand entrance to the palace was lined with towering marble columns. Bathed in golden light, guests in their finest attire entered and exited, their laughter and conversation floating in the air like music. The sounds of a string quartet, playing delicate melodies, filled the courtyard, and through the open doors, Lyra could see the ballroom, immense, filled with guests swirling in elegant dance. Every detail was perfect, every person as flawless as the jewels that adorned their necks. But Lyra didn't belong here. Or at least, that's what she had been told her whole life. Her heart clenched, and her mind raced. She almost turned to leave. Maybe this was a dream, a fantasy she had no place in. But then, she thought of everything that had brought her here, the sleepless nights spent scrubbing floors, the endless tasks, the harsh words of Alara, and the way she had fought through it all. She thought of the woman she had become, the girl who refused to be broken, no matter how many times she was told she wasn't enough. In that moment, Lyra made a choice. She wasn't just going to stand at the edges of the palace and watch the life she had always dreamed of from afar. She would walk through those doors. She would let them see her, whether they liked it or not. With her chin held high, Lyra stepped into the palace. Immediately, the room fell silent. Whispers spread like wildfire. Who was this girl? Her simple dress, made of the finest linen, but unadorned with jewels. Her short hair, neatly styled but far from the flawless updos of the other women. Her presence was like a breath of fresh air, cutting through the formality and elegance of the room. And yet, despite her differences, she radiated something more powerful than beauty, a quiet strength, an undeniable aura that made the people around her pause. At first, there were snickers from some of the women, their eyes narrowing as they judged the girl who dared to enter their world. One of them, a woman with long, flowing hair and a gown made of shimmering gold, whispered loudly enough for Lyra to hear. She must be lost. No one like her belongs here. But Lyra didn't falter. She didn't shrink under their gaze. She straightened her shoulders and kept her eyes on the center of the ballroom, where a man stood, tall, regal, and handsome beyond words. He was none other than Prince Jabari, the man every girl in the room had been waiting for, the man they all hoped to impress. Lyra felt a strange pull toward him, an inexplicable connection that she couldn't explain. His eyes, dark and intense, were locked on her as soon as she entered. And for the first time, the whispers of the crowd faded away. It was as if time itself had slowed, the music becoming a distant hum as the prince took a step toward her. The room seemed to hold its breath. Prince Jabari moved with an elegance that matched the surroundings, his every step confident and graceful. As he neared Lyra, his eyes softened, and there was a flicker of recognition in his gaze. He stopped in front of her, his voice low and commanding as he spoke. "You are the most striking person in this room tonight," he said, his voice carrying over the murmurs of the crowd. "I've seen many women, but none like you." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. Was this real? Was this really happening? Before she could respond, the crowd's whispers grew louder, and a sharp voice broke through the air. "Who does she think she is?" It was Alara, standing at the edge of the room, her eyes wide with disbelief. "This girl has no place here. She's nothing but a servant." The room fell into a tense silence, and all eyes turned toward Alara. Her words, sharp and venomous, echoed through the hall, but Lyra didn't look at her stepmother. She didn't let Alara's cruelty touch her anymore. She was beyond that now. Prince Jabari turned his gaze toward Alara, his expression hardening. "I believe you are mistaken," he said coldly. "This young woman is more than you will ever understand." Lyra looked at the prince, her heart swelling with a strange sense of pride. For the first time, someone who mattered, saw her for who she truly was. Not for her beauty, not for her clothes, but for her strength, her resilience, and the fire in her heart. "Would you honor me with a dance?" the prince asked, his voice filled with sincerity. Lyra nodded, her breath catching in her throat as she placed her hand in his. As they glided onto the dance floor, the music swelled around them, filling the room with warmth and energy. The guests watched, stunned, as Lyra danced with the prince, her movements fluid and graceful. No one could deny it now, she was the star of the night. And as the dance continued, Alara, standing alone in the corner, watched with growing fury. Her plan had failed. Lyra had not been broken. She had risen above it all. And in that moment, she was more than a girl from the village. She was a queen in her own right. As the night unfolded, the prince continued to gaze at Lyra with admiration, his heart slowly recognizing what everyone else had failed to see. The beauty that Alara had tried to tear down, the spirit she had sought to crush, was undeniable. Lyra was not just a girl who dreamed of more, she was the embodiment of everything the kingdom needed. And as the final notes of the dance echoed through the ballroom, Prince Jabari turned to Lyra with a smile that held more than admiration, it held something deeper. "Will you stay with me?" he asked, his voice filled with a quiet intensity. Lyra's heart raced as she looked into his eyes. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was just a dreamer. She was someone worthy of love, worthy of admiration, and in that moment, She knew her journey was just beginning. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey and staying with us until the very end of Lyra's story. We hope her strength, resilience, and courage have inspired you as much as they've inspired us. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated on more inspiring stories like this. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below sharing what you learned from Lyra's journey and how it resonated with you. Your feedback means the world to us. Stay tuned for more captivating stories. And remember, true beauty comes from within.